Our next speaker is Dr. Carmen Kohler. I've been practicing her name because I wanted to make sure I got it correctly. We're going to be learning about sustainability and our journey to Mars. Thank you, Dr. Carmen, for being with us.
Well, thank you very much for being here. And I would like to share with you today my journey to Mars and my different analog Mars simulation missions. And so who wants to come to Mars with me? Okay. So, and on that way, we're also going to talk about a little bit about sustainability. So I really love to ask this question in some talks, and I think this is the perfect surrounding to ask, who would love to be an astronaut or is already an astronaut? Hands up. Whoop, whoop. Exactly, isn't that great? That's why I really wanted to ask that in this, in this surrounding. So I really wanted to become an astronaut ever since I was a kid. And it started with Star Trek. Because when yeah, it's also very nice environment here to say that, I guess. So when I was in elementary school and I came home, I was there with my stay-home mom, and we watched TV. And on there was always the first show we watched was Star Trek. And it really fascinated me to see as a young child, to see the sheer endless universe, traveling to different galaxies. And then the technology I also thought was super fascinating. I mean, beam me up, Scotty. I mean, that was amazing. Beam me to school, you know? So I thought that was really, really fascinating. And then after Star Trek, there was MacGyver. Yeah, exactly. You know? A totally childhood hero. And I thought it was so fascinating that he was a secret agent and he didn't use weapons, right? Because he didn't need weapons because his weapon was his brain. And he just found solutions to everything. And I thought that was so fascinating, all the things you can do with duct tape. Woo! And so for me, MacGyver on the Enterprise, that was an astronaut. And that was exactly what I wanted to be. And so I'm from Germany, and we heard from Michaela, for example, that as the different nationalities, some are easier, some are more difficult to go to space. Well, Germany gives a lot of money for space, and so we have a lot of astronauts. And the astronauts are these, and there are 2 people missing, so 2 more men missing. So then the first night we had that were the fun, diverse tacos. Well, in Germany, they're fun, I think, but diverse, maybe not so. And they probably all like tacos as well. So being in Germany, it's also, you really lack that role model of astronauts. But still, I had that dream to become an astronaut. And so obviously, after finishing school, I became a hairdresser. So in Germany, you do the apprenticeship, or to become a hairdresser, you need to learn for 3 years. And so if anybody needs a haircut, I can really cut hair. I did that for 3 years. Exactly. And so I had a lot of clients, and then one of my clients was a professor in the school, and I was from Berlin. And we did and I cut his hair, and you'd always do a bit of chitty-chatty at hairdressers, no? And then he asked me, do you read? I said, oh, yeah, I read. And he asked me, what do you read at the moment? And I said, Fermat's last sentence, the Fermat's theorem. And that's a book about the theorem from Fermat, and about a mathematical proof. And he looked at me and said, you read a book about a mathematical proof? And I was like, yeah, I always thought like I would love to study, but that would be mathematics, and I think I cannot do it because I really don't think that I would be good at it. And then he's like, yeah, but if you're interested in something, and if you have the passion for something, you're automatically good in it. And so I finished my hairdressing, and after that, I studied mathematics. And I remember the first day studying mathematics, and I remember how amazing I thought, and still when I see formulas, they make me super, super happy. And so once I was on that journey of science, I continued and I did my PhD in physics. Yeah, I stopped physics in school because I was so horrible, and so I first had to learn physics in school before I did my PhD. But everything worked out, And I did my physics, my PhD in physics in the atmosphere, because I love the satellites and looking at the Earth from outer space. Because it's kind of like astronauts do, and they have the overview effect that we were listening to of earlier, and all of that. That's all of those things you can see in the numerical weather prediction movies, and well, movies if you make the pictures together, and then the satellite. And so nowadays I have a company dealing with weather and satellite data services. But the dream was still alive to become an astronaut. And so one day I got an email from a friend that said, yeah, if you cannot become an astronaut now, maybe you could become an analog astronaut. And I was like, hmm? And then I looked it up and I looked up the call, and now we will see. And I looked up the video. That's what I saw. Gernot was here last year, no? So those are the capacities we have to have as an analog astronaut, and you can go back to the presentation. A bit of epic music was needed, no? And so I watched this video with Are You the Right Stuff? And there was the 5 criteria on it. I think yes, on the left. Perfect. And the next slide, please. No, just the next slide. So these were the 5 criteria to become an analog astronaut at the Austrian Space Forum. And that was the capacity to tolerate boredom, ability to function despite threats, strong interpersonal skills, humor, as we know, is very, very important, and perseverance. And I thought like, okay, at least humor, I think that will work out. So I applied. And then 2015, I became the first female analog astronaut from the Austrian Space Forum. And we also see Inigo there, who's also there today. So we were selected over a longer process, which was also analog to the one from ESA, with 600 parameters. It was a couple of weekends long. We got really thoroughly tested by everything. We had a lot of interviews. We had a lot of tests. We had physical different things. It was very, very hard. And then at the end, we managed to get into the standing core of the Austrian Space Forum. And I think that is a huge difference from the other analogs that we were hearing about in the previous days, is that at the Austrian Space Forum, you have a standing analog astronaut core. So you can only become an analog astronaut there when there is an open call for analog astronauts. Then you will have all the process, the selection process, and only when you're selected, you can enter and become one analog astronaut at the Austrian Space Forum, and then take part in the missions. And I was now part of 4 missions, and I will talk about those today. The first mission was in Kaunataler Glacier. This was 2015. After the training, we got training for half a year. We had a lot of weekends training and then a lot of homework. So after half a year, we finally got to go to our first mission. And this was on the glacier, and we had a lot of human robotic experiments there. And also we had in total 10 experiments that we conducted. One special thing is that we do planetary EVAs. So for that, we need a special spacesuit simulator. And the spacesuit simulator, it takes about 2 hours, the whole process of donning to put it on, which is very long. And so what takes so long is that on the one hand side, we have the whole technical things, but on the other side, also the whole putting on the donning of the suit takes very long. So we have 3 different layers. The first layer is the thermal garment that we see here in the picture. And the second layer is an exoskeleton. This exoskeleton simulates the pressure suit. that we were also seeing at SAM or something that because it gets harder when it's full of air, and that is simulated with the exoskeleton, that just when you move, that the tighter it gets, the more difficult it becomes. And then you have the outer layer, which is made out of a Kevlar-like material. You can see on the back that you have a personal life support system. And in that personal life support system, for example, we have a lot of batteries, we have all the technology in there. In general, it's a hard upper torso. And in the helmet, we have a lot of sensors. We have the temperature sensor, relative humidity, CO2 and O2 sensors. And also we have an ECG. So the medical people that we also have here today, they have a constant telemetry, and they are constantly aware of what is going on inside of the suit. They constantly know the atmosphere, basically, and how the analog astronaut is doing according to the ECG. So the UDAs, they're called those suits, they weigh 50 kilo. So it's very good to have doctors that say, okay, yeah, you're still fit, everything good to go. Especially if you're out in the desert for a couple of hours. So as I say, it takes 2 hours because first you do the whole technology, you check all of that, you put on the 3 layers, and then you have 2 different sets for the communication. You have the primary and secondary radio, and then after that, you put on the helmet. And one of my favorite things of the suit is that if you're in the desert and you're doing a lot of exercise because you conduct all the different experiments, you start to sweat. And when you start to sweat, your nose often starts to tingle. And for that, we have this beautiful turquoise device that we see here at the bottom. And that's the razzle-frazzle device. And there you can scratch your nose. That's very, very important. Another thing that we have is that we test the workflows, because we're here and we all know, of course, that when we go to Mars, that we don't have real-time communication. So one of the things that we test are the workflows, how to deal with this time delay. So we have an average time delay of 10 minutes. So it takes 10 minutes in one direction, then 10 minutes for the answer. And for that, we have the Mission Support Center, which is in Austria. And the Mission Support Center is called like that because they cannot control us because of the time delay, so they're only supporting us. It is here we only see one of the rooms, there's the flight control room, but we have a lot of different teams there. It's always staffed with a lot of people. We have the human factors team, we have the RSS, the remote, the science team, we have the flight planning team. So we have daily activity plans, really, to know what kind of experiments we conduct every day. And then we have the flight directors, which also have a lot of different people. We have the procedures, we have the EarthCom people. We have all of those different staffed. So it's really, it feels like a real Mars mission. So this, as I say, I was part in 4 missions. This was 2015. And this was the Kaunatala Glacier. And we see here that we had a tent. That was our field tent. And we were still sleeping, like some of us were sleeping up, somewhere in the valley and things, but we were really focusing on the planetary EVAs, right? And we had 10 different experiments that people can hand in, different universities and companies can hand that in, and they're being screened and selected for the different missions. And one of those was the fog shower. So in that tent that we just saw, we were doffing our spacesuit simulators and we're pretty sweaty. We took a shower. So this is the fog shower. It's from a company in Poland that we tested for this, which is for sustainability reasons. It takes about, as people, when we take a shower, we use about 8 liters per minute. That's 2.1 gallon. No, not to use SI units. And you use only a fourth with this. It's like an aerosol shower. It's basically like a garden hose you see around here. And it has just a couple of holes in it. So it's like aerosols. And then we had the different tests to see afterwards, like how clean did we feel? How did it feel in general? It was on a glacier, so it was pretty cold in general. But yeah, it worked really well. And then the next mission we had looked completely different. This was 2018 and in Oman in the Darfur region. we already see that the setup is totally different to the tent that we saw before, and also that there was no civilization around. So this is really in the middle of the desert, and we did sometimes have camels coming by, but other than that, there were no people. To say that all of the missions that we do are all 4 weeks. So we're always 4 weeks together, and the team already knows each other. So that's also something that is very different to the other missions that we've heard about today. So the team is trained together, and then different analog astronauts always go to the different missions. Sorry, yeah, go back. What we see here is that we were not living in this beautiful spacey structure that we see in the middle, but we were living in the containers out there, and we were 15 people. So we were 15 people all working together. We had the analog astronauts, we had the IT people, we had the doctors, we had everybody together for 15 people for the 4 weeks and conducted all of the experiments. That changed again in our mission in Israel. That was 2021. And we see here part of the DMARS habitat, and which was extended by another habitat in the front to make it bigger. And there, the mission structure was very, very different. It was this was the first time that we separated the crew, and then we called the other people the on-site support team to just make it more realistic, so that you have the analog astronauts that have to be self-sufficient. We had there was their own food, and everything was only for the analog astronauts, and then the others were kind of the on-site support team. We call it a bit like the robots on Mars, because we were not allowed to communicate in real time, but we had to have the eyes and the robots, of course, outside, because we're doing the human robot missions. And one thing that we can see here, this is from the Israel one, is that we also had photovoltaic. So to kind of see how sustainable can that be energy-wise, because of course, when we go to Mars, we will have a lot of a very, very big energy budget, because we have so many robots, and we will have the life support system. We have so many things that we have to think about just to keep us alive. And now, this is the last mission that we just had. This is in Armenia, and we were there for a month just now in March. Inigo and I were part of the crew again, and we were, again, 6 analog astronauts in Armenia. Here we see the habitat, but it's a pity that I cannot turn around the picture, because what we were able to see from the habitat is the Ararat, is the biblical Ararat. So we had this beautiful mountain view, which looked very different when we arrived. It was full of snow, and then there was suddenly like a blooming, like it was almost Japanese, the bloom. And then it got super hot, and we had problems with the heat. So like we went through all of those different things, and within 4 weeks, so it was very, very adventurous. And it was, but also there we had it again, that we had the analog astronauts within the habitat, and then we had the other team which supported us from the outside. This is the Armash habitat, and that is also taking part in the world's biggest analog. So if you're interested in taking part as an analog astronaut there, this is where you're going to live. Beautiful views, I have to say. One of the main things that we also do at the Austrian Space Forum is the human-robotic interaction. And here we see 2 of the rovers that we were testing in Armenia. On the left is the Mercator, and here's the IROX. The Mercator, we don't see it so well, but it's this massive thing, and it's for the exploration cascade, as we call it. The exploration cascade is a workflow where we pretend not to know anything about the environment. So we then, as if we would go to Mars and we don't know anything about it yet, we would first check the satellite data, and then send the robots out to do the scouting for us, to know what are the possible regions of interest, points of interest, where can we as analog astronauts then go, or in Mars astronauts, go there really to take different probes if the robots are not capable of doing that. Because what would we want to minimize? We would like to minimize to go outside, right? Because every EVA also brings a bit of safety issues with it, right? We would like to stay in the habitat and only really go outside when we really know where are we going to go, what will we find there, and it will be safe for us to go there. So this human robotic interaction is very, very important because it is also a measure of safety. And also the iROCs was very helpful because it came with us and we could put our probes there, for example. We had all our utensils and all of that. So it's like a little friend that basically that comes with you. And it's always fun, of course, to steer the robots. The Mercator, for example, it had also like a spectrometer on it and the different things. And we were able to steer it from the habitat. That was quite an amazing thing that we had like a, from the Portuguese university, we had we could steer it from a rope from our computer and with a joystick and with a tactile glove to kind of feel into it what the rover feels. So all of those different things those are things that we test. In total, we had 15 different experiments. So these are only 2. And we had different things with AI. We have a lot of human factor experiments as well, because it's very, very important to understand what is happening with us and the team dynamics while we're in isolation for a month. And so, yeah, those are different things that we tested. Because one thing is that to always have the sustainability, of course, to look at the resources, but one important thing is also the psychological sustainability. It's really important that we stay healthy as a team, and that is possible. This is the team from Armenia. We now have a second woman, and we're 13 analog astronauts. And this is Annika, and yeah, Inigo, as I said, was there as well. And I think that the really important thing is for the psychological sustainability is that on the one hand side, we have all of those 5 capacities, but on the other side, we also have the mindset, the space mindset that not only we as analog astronauts, but we as a space community have, that we are aware that Earth is fragile, that space is fragile, our universe is fragile, and that we want to maintain it. And so thank you for coming to this mission, this journey to Mars with me. And now again, totally epic music, which we don't hear. And then, no, we will not hear it. It did not work, I think. And then now imagine a really great video from a drone. And on the other side, we see then the habitat that we had in Oman. Very pretty. That is the end of our journey to Mars today. Thank you very much.